Why do more people from our community not spend time in therapy?
Ooh, how long do you have? The underlying struggle with our communities accessing mental health is that there's so much shame attached to it.
Okay. What I will say is the only way though to break the system is you gotta live under the rule of the people who are winning. I'm throwing it out. We're doing a couple things here.
I'm not okay.
We're doing a couple things here.
If we're saying, listen, I hear you, it's hard, I get it, it's so unfair, but this is the way, then it's going to continue being the way. And if we look back in history, the people who made really big social changes are the ones who said, we are not okay with this being the way anymore. And so we are going to rebel. And they could kill me, they could run me over, they could spray mace in my eyes, but I'm not going that way.
Welcome everybody, we're back to another episode of Unlinear. I am your humble and gracious host, Travell. As you know, Unlinear, we track the unlinear path of our guests from where they began to where they are now, as well as talk about some social issues and conversations that we think aren't being unpacked properly. Today, I have the great pleasure of sitting across from Breanna Phillip, a registered social worker and a psychotherapist. Thank you so much for being in the chair today.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So, getting right into it, psychotherapy. I'll give you my introduction to psychotherapy to frame my ignorance as we traverse through this conversation. My parent, when I was younger, I'm an adult child of divorce.
Okay.
My parents separated. I was around 12. And I was a very obedient church-based kid. So you do what everybody tells you and you don't get, but apparently I had anger issues. I didn't even realize this. The way I figured out I had anger issues, I used to do judo. I was in a judo tournament. And for those who do judo, when you're in the junior ranks, you're not supposed to throw submissions. I was at a tournament and I threw an armbar for no reason. Didn't even realize, they said I had anger issues. Apparently my father also struggled with it, kind of developed this method where you count down from 10 is what he always used to try and tell me. So that was my first time where I sat down with I guess a psychotherapist or a child's therapist, where it was to try and, kind of figure out the anger. Because the way my family or the way my parents were was so idyllic. And I guess it's a credit to, I never saw them fight. So it was like just one day, it was over. Like show up to house, show up to house, door, not same door.
Wow.
Like it's not the same day no more. So I remember sitting down with the psychotherapist and I was trying to be smarter than smart. Like I was almost deliberately not trying to let this person get into me. So they're asking questions, I'm asking questions back. I'm trying to be a little snot. I'm asking about the diplomas on the wall. I'm doing all these deflection tactics. And I think it was like session number 4. They said, well, and I think there was a session where I said, I want my parents in here because I was so angry and I felt like I wanted a referee to express that. In and around that same time. So that was my beginning. A little bit older in life after, church, youth leadership. I was a crisis worker for young people at that time as well. Then I discovered this beautiful show on HBO called In Treatment.
I've heard of that show.
And oh my goodness. In Treatment was, just for those who don't know, In Treatment ran 5 days a week or like 4 days a week. Each day was technically a patient for the therapist. It was like a 1-hour session.
Wow.
And it was just this exploration of psychology. And I think because I was warring within myself and had been doing so for many years, I just loved that show and have always been kind of a fan or a healthy admirer of the profession. What about yourself? What was your introduction into social work and psychotherapy?
Can I say something about what you said?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. It's interesting because I have a visceral reaction to people saying I have anger issues.
Okay.
Because I feel like in many ways, anger is an emotion that's been villainized.
Okay.
And I think that what people actually mean when they say I have anger issues is that I struggle to manage my emotions in general. Because the truth is that oftentimes what we're calling anger issues is actually the cover up for other emotions that we don't have language to express.
I I should have had you when I was 12. This is this is much better. Okay.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that because I had like, as you said it, I had like a little like, ugh.
Like, okay.
Yeah. My introduction to therapy. So fun fact, I actually at one point said that I would absolutely never be a therapist.
Okay.
I've always I've known for a long time that I wanted to do social work. When I did they do careers in civics in grade 10. So I did careers in civics. Initially, I love babies. And so initially I wanted to do I wanted to be an adoption agent. And my civics teacher was like, well, technology might take over a large portion of that position in future.
Okay.
So have you thought about social work? And so that's where I kind of got into that.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I was in my master's that I actually considered being a psychotherapist. The reason being is because I didn't see people who looked like me in psychotherapy. And that was the very same reason why I didn't want to be in that position.
Right.
I've always been passionate about specifically using my education and my schooling to support Black communities.
Sure.
And so because I didn't see Black people either in therapy or as psychotherapists, I was like, that's not where I'm trying to be. I'm trying to be where my people are. So I was like,
Okay, yeah.
So I was always like, I'm going to do community work. Like I'm going to stay rooted in community. But when I was doing my master's and got a greater understanding of the reasons why Black individuals aren't in therapy, I was like, well, I need to be in psychotherapy so that my people can come in because we need it. In regards to a personal experience with psychotherapy, my first therapy session was a nightmare.
Okay.
It was horrible.
Can a therapy session be defined as horrible?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it was okay.
It was horrid. It was disgusting. No, but so I'm a survivor of sexual trauma, and I went to this psychotherapist who was a pastor, and basically he didn't validate anything that I was feeling.
Now, I want to talk to that initially. I want to stop right there and talk to that. Did because I'm assuming that, I guess, how do I frame this? Considering what you survived, my initial thought is it is more helpful if it's not a man in that chair. So how did that, do you know what I mean? Like, how did that happen? Was why would that happening? Is I guess my question in a way.
Yeah. I mean, that the other person not being a male could be true. It could not be true, depending on how the person experienced that trauma. Okay. For me, I do think it would have been helpful to have a woman. Mind you, I went to one session, I never went back, but it was just one of those things where that's who my parents trusted at the time. Right. Which goes back to the whole representation thing. And when there weren't many Black individuals in psychology or psychotherapy, and at that point, I'm sure that majority of those who were probably male. So that was kind of it was a situation where it's we're offering this to you, we think that this would be helpful for you, and so I just went. Right, I was maybe 14, 13.
Wow.
Yeah.
Without obviously violating the experience, but maybe generally talking about it so that other people who might have had an experience that thought was terrible, what would you class in the experience that made it terrible?
He didn't listen to me.
Didn't listen.
He spoke majority of the time. And at the end of it, I felt more invalidated rather than feeling more validated.
Okay.
At the time, I was really struggling with the way that, my family had dealt with the situation, and his response was basically they're trying their best. They're doing their best.
Okay.
Yeah.
In a way, it's almost as if, which I look, I think a couple episodes back, I did a deconstruction of a movie called The Book of Clarence with my mentor. So sometimes with the way I talk about the church, people think I'm I'm not trying to kick your back, and I love you guys, but that is a scary, consistent theme that I notice of the church community, where they're trying to mute a young person's response to make it easier on the parents. And what you're describing, I mean, I'm not going to alienate anybody, but this is something that I think uniquely when I talk to my Caribbean friends, we always, because it's just that thing where like my mom, we joke about it all the time. Certain stuff, I love my grandma. We all love my grandma. Certain stuff you can't get her to talk about.
Yeah.
And she's not gonna.
Yeah.
And like, we know that. So if you need peace, if you need relief from that, you got to go find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how, it's like, I remember saying that, like you look at your parent and you say, I know you love me and I know you would do anything for me, but you can't do this. And what does that do to my understanding of the first two statements?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Bell hooks. That's all I got to say.
Bell hooks.
All About Love. That book revolutionized the way that I think about love. I think that what we often experience, and shout out to all our parents, they literally did do the best that they could with what they had. That's the truth. However, the other truth is that sometimes your best is not enough. And
living in that.
And holding that.
Yeah.
And recognizing, I think something that parents struggle with is recognizing that they cannot be everything that their children need. Right? And so when you think about accessing a therapist for your child, that's saying what your needs extend what I'm able to provide. And because I love you, rather than trying to work from a place that is not within my jurisdiction, I'm going to get somebody who I know can do the work that you need, instead of being so selfish and self-centered, because that's really what it is, that I can't let go of this idea that I want to be all that you need. That's love.
Wow. I'll give you the tools more than I'll give you just myself type thing.
Yeah, because we can't possibly be, and mind you, like I say all of this understanding the weight it is to be a parent. I say all of this understanding the shame that is around parenting when, children have certain needs. I say all of that, holding space for all of that. I don't think that our parents are just wicked people that just, didn't want us to strive. Yeah. And at the same time, I say that recognizing from my own work, from my own lived experience. I've worked with youth for over 8 years. And I say that I say all of that also holding space for the reality that we stunt our children's emotional growth when we don't allow them to access what they need that is outside of us.
Say that one more time. We stunt our children's emotional growth when we do not allow them to access what they need that is outside of us. Wow. Do you think therapy should be a prerequisite for all parents?
What I will say is this. Although I'm a psychotherapist, I realize that not everybody's going to sit down in a therapy session.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say, and there's different reasons, culture, whatever. Do I believe that psychotherapy is helpful? Absolutely. But I also recognize that I'm coming from a certain cultural dynamic. I am first-gen Canadian, so the way I see things may be different than the way my parents, who are, grew up in the Caribbean. What I will say is that I think that intentional self-reflection and beginning the process to healing should be a prerequisite to parenting. Okay.
I'm going to go one more. We're going to go one more. If a person has a sickness and they don't have a family doctor and one day they die, we would all say, if they had a family doctor, probably would have caught it. Something different would have happened. For me, when I think about the hundreds of youth I used to speak with when I was at church, when I think about even my own life, when I think about the villains of my life, I do live in a world where therapy could have made heroes of some of the villains in my story.
Absolutely.
And a lot of these people were people who had power over me.
Yes.
So it's hard for me to not see the universal advantage of it. I see therapy the same way I see a general practitioner, a family doctor.
And I do too. And I recognize that my perspective is the same as yours in regards to, I would look at someone who passes, who didn't have a family doctor, and say if they had a family doctor, that would have saved them. But I understand that view and that perspective is coming from our context. Somebody else might say, well, if they had the right bush tea. Someone else might say if they had access to, I don't know.
Well, treatment.
Treatment in general, right? But that treatment can look different. And that's why I say, I personally believe, which is a part of the reason why I'm a therapist who has a therapist, and to do therapy in general, that absolutely it's beneficial. And I also leave space for the reality that that's just not everybody's context. And so that's why I
like you hesitate to frame it in a tight.
Exactly. Okay. Right. I think that therapeutic access to things that are therapeutic is important. Sometimes that doesn't look like a psychotherapist.
I don't know if an extra spa day is going to help some of these guys stop cheating on these women, though.
No, it might not. It will.
I'm pretty sure talking to a therapist might, though. I understand. Here's the thing. Like, I know that what I'm loving is I'm a capitalist. I live in black and white. I live in numbers. I live in cause and effect.
In binaries.
Look, at the end of the day, I think. Okay, I'll say it this way. When okay, the transition of my worldview. So I grew up in a Pentecostal Christian church. So I probably started out very black and white from a worldview perspective. My vocation in school was politics because I originally wanted to be in law.
Couldn't tell.
Couldn't tell. I had a politics and a minor in economics, which then drives me to, I don't want to say I see color for the purpose of helping people get back to black and white. Because I can acknowledge here's what I acknowledge about my worldview. I know that to you it seems blue, green, yellow, gray, turquoise. It's black and white. And I will empathize with the blues that you see and the greens that you see and the yellows that you see. and identify even. But it's black and white. I'll put it to you this way. Okay. When I was young in life, how sure are you're going to do good on a test, Travell? I'm 70% sure, 80% sure, 85% sure. In business, you get to 51%, you punch it. Because there is no more sure or less sure. I'm either 51 or I'm not 51. You get to 51, you punch it. It took years for me to get there. Everything's black and white. All the extra talking is for comfort. But it's not. Now again, I'm throwing out words that I know is going to make you cringe. All the
extra talking, processing.
All the extra. Yes, but okay. All right, before all the extra talk. Okay, how do I describe this? I think people can change. They often don't.
Agreed.
I think there are some people for whom great advice is just words.
I think we're all that person at some points.
I agree. I do think that it is from a position of comfort that a person has the capacity to change. Like I think coming to it from themselves, I think it's better to see a surgeon than a butcher, for example, right? Somebody who can kind of cut you, do the same work, stitch you back, put you in a general anesthetic, wake you up. How do you feel? Move twice, stretch. Let's go to rehab. I think it's better to heal there than to go to the guy who's going to cut you with a cleaver and say you'll be fine. You're not going to bleed out. I think those are two, much better things. But I do still think that all of that still must be in service of the fact that our pursuit is towards the truth, which is black and white.
I respect your perspective. I respect that. And I think that it depends on what you value more, the process or the end, right? I think some people value the end more and some people value the process more, and that's the truth. And I think that for me, I struggle with the idea of things being black and white because so much of my life was not black and white. And so much of the life that I see of people who I serve is not black and white. And the truth is that if it was black and white or if we kept the perspective of it being black and white, they wouldn't have made the progress that they made. And I think that as a psychotherapist, process is what's most important to me. More important than outcome. Of course, the outcome, I would love all of my clients to move forward in their process of healing because it is a process and not a destination. But what I also recognize is that sometimes what I thought was the end when we started doesn't end up being the end. And what I think is the end for them may not be what they think is the end for them. And all of that is colorful. It ain't black and white.
I mean, look, you use terms there that I think we agree more than because, like you said, it's an end. if I say, for example, everything's black and white, I'm not saying I know what the black or the white is.
It's the end. It may be the end. So when I say the end, I don't mean the end of the process.
Yeah,
I
of course.
mean the end of my interaction with them in that process.
Yeah. I am so identified with the spirit of your.
Not the spirit.
I'm so akin to the spirit of what you said, because I agree with you. Like I said, you have to see the color. You have to see the nuance.
You can feel the butt.
You have to
coming.
see. Yeah. For example, I mean, if we brought it back to your journey, we go to that day. You're 14 with that individual who, for a whole wide array of reasons, was not the right partner for you in that moment. Was not the right guide for you in that moment. And there is a technicolor set of reasons that then run you through a life that bring you now to this, to have the tools to be who you are. And for whatever reason, or in whichever way people will lean on, I'll look and say, God makes no mistake. Like I'll look on a lot of different things and say, okay, we will validate that moment and give it reason and meaning because of how it brings you to today. For that, one day you turn your perspective and say, okay, but for my community, I can now turn. And that probably comes from such a deep sense of personal injury, knowing your community can fail you. So I see the color, but I still see two endpoints.
What are those endpoints that you see?
I see. Okay, if I'm going to be, only for the purpose of the conversation, deliberately short-sighted.
Okay.
My statement has much more nuance to this. But I see where a bad experience with a therapist creates your desire to be a good one.
Okay. So
I see a black and I see a white.
That's interesting. That's very interesting, because I don't see those things as black and white. Like those things don't seem like ends to me. They seem like a part of a process. And I think that, like, in many ways we're saying the same thing and different things at the same time. The spirit. I love the spirit of what you're saying. However, no, I'm joking.
I so identify with the spirit of what you're saying. Because look, I'm a capitalist. I started out making music. I love poetry. I don't think life is about objectives. I think life is about experiences. It is not about 2 endpoints. It is about the dash. I love all these statements and lines. I was the guy who finished, I was the first one in my family to complete, let me not disrespect anybody, to complete a university education. I went back and told all my little cousins, nieces, and nephews, you don't have to do this. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. I finished it to say, guys, because in a Caribbean family, it's objective. Get me the paper.
Yeah.
I got my diploma. I gave it to my mom. I said, I've done what I said I would do, my word to you, but now I will take what they have taught me and I do something else now.
Yeah.
That's why I work for myself. I don't work for, because so much of the rest of the sequence was now go get a good job, now go do this. Now, but I've learned from this experience perhaps something more than you could see, and went back and told all my cousins, hey, however, okay, but in that technicolor, I also say this: if I knew then what I know now, I would have never gone to school.
Really?
But I needed school to figure out I was an entrepreneur. So I see the color, but the 2 points, to me, I still see the black and white. I did not need to go to school to do what I do for a living. Yeah.
I think based off, I mean, I don't know your story. You know your story better than I know your story. You're the expert in your life. But from hearing what I've just heard you say, yes, you didn't technically need to go to school to do what you're doing now, but going to school broadened. Like, I feel like
it did. 100%.
So it's like, we could say hindsight is always 20/20, right?
Yes.
We can say, looking back after we've gone through a certain journey, that like, oh, I didn't need this. But who are you, like, not to say who are you to say, but who are you to say that you didn't need that?
Yep.
Because you would, if you did not go to school, you would not be, I'm not saying your life would be bad or anything, but I'm saying you wouldn't be the person you are today. Your life would, I believe, would look different. Because for me, and as someone who's gone through school as well and has many thoughts about school, because I've also worked in education.
Yes.
Maybe I am more political than I think.
Yes.
But I, as much as and actually, you know what? It actually goes back to what we were saying before. as much as I would love to tell my children that they don't need school, we do not live in a society where we can actually accurately say that. I don't believe so. Because at the end of the day, it's a system that has been in place for such a long time. And like, I'm not saying that people who have not gone to school are not successful. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that the society we live in views people who have a formal education a certain way.
Okay.
And that does give access to certain things.
Okay.
I don't like the way you're responding to me. Anyways, that was not even my point. My point is that all of the things that, what I acquired from school, aside from a paper that I paid a lot of money for, my parents paid lots of money for, was the ability to critically think. And the ability to challenge and the audacity to challenge, which is what has propelled me to do the work that I do today, the way that I do the work I do today. And so could I do this work like in regards to like I'm not talking about like the licensing, but could I do the work that I'm doing in regards to what I'm producing without school? Absolutely. But I don't think I would do it in the way that I do it if I didn't go to school.
No, I agree, and I'm not anti-school.
No, I don't think you are.
I'm not anti-school. For me, part of the reason I needed school, I was a young, like I said, I was a young man of obedience. I did what I was told. So I needed to go to college, have the freedom. I needed to break a system. I needed something that helps me in business. I needed to make a mistake and not die from it. You know, because when you're the obedient one, and you just do what you're told. What becomes very hard to do is take a risk. Because everybody's going to tell you why you shouldn't. What happens when you live in the reality that you were wrong about this? But it's great because if you don't die, it gives you something. And what it gives you, you only get more of the more you fail. I said something to somebody the other day. I said, look, I'm sharing a personal conversation. So I have to preface, I'm not this egotistical. Okay. I said, I'm pretty sure I have the secret on how to go from nothing to something. And they said, what do you mean? I said, okay, I'll put it to you this way. Let's say there's a 1 in a million chance that you could be a multimillionaire. Okay, we're talking financially. They said, yeah. I said, then all you got to do is make 1 million mistakes. And the speed and quickness with which you can do that is the difference between nothing and something. But eventually you can't keep failing. Then I stopped and said, who told you that? That is the lie that they tell our brains because of schooling system. They teach us that you can't fail too much. You fail too much, you get held back. You fail too much, it's a problem. But in life and in business, that doesn't exist. You cannot, you develop the skills that earn you the ability to fail.
I'm struggling. Not that what you're saying is wrong. The part that I'm struggling with is that some of us don't have the privilege
to fail.
And bounce back.
And which is part of the reason. So there's a couple things I say. The only reason I'm in business is I have two parents that didn't fight me when they separated from each other. They fought each other. I never paid for the fact my parents didn't want to be together anymore. For my parents separated, I was around 12, 30. I'm 33 now.
That's okay. Don't whisper it. Say it loud.
21 years. And I'm older now and I've gone through a couple relationships. And I thank my mom for it all the time. For 21 years, both of them would sit across from their ex for me and be civil. Like thinking about that calmly, it's like, damn, thank you guys. There was one time I first started my business, I was looking at condos with my dad. It was a big joke. And him and I joke about this all the time. So they gave us the price and, my dad knew how well I was doing. And then I went out and I think I had like a terrible week or something and it cut my money in it, in chunks. And he goes, it's okay, man. You can stay. Never took no rent from me. Never took no rent from me. Now, where we talk about privilege, I say my father never took rent from me as a badge of honor. I do not say that to besmirch parents who are not in a financial position to live without the money from their child.
Yeah.
I empathize there too. I don't judge that. Because there are pressures on different communities that other communities would never understand, which we understand.
We get it.
But I think that what I will say is the only way though to break the system is you got to live under the rule of the people who are winning. Because and this is the saying I had. I'm throwing it out. We're doing a couple things here.
I'm not okay.
We're doing a couple things here. We're doing a couple things here. Risk taking is the only road to success.
Agreed.
Now, I did not say that you taking a risk and me taking a risk and him taking a risk are the same. But the truth is that if any one of us want a chance, we all got to be willing to do it. This is where social systems have to come in place to give people the opportunity to take those risks. And that's where our societies fail.
Absolutely.
And this is where there's anger in some communities because they're saying, you guys are telling me to take a risk, but you're not putting systems in place
for me to
that don't rob me of my life if I do it.
Yeah.
I acknowledge that.
Yeah.
But I still have to come back and say, but we got to take the risk.
I hear you.
You know what I mean? So that's more what I mean. Like when I say there is no path that isn't that one.
Yeah. No,
it's
I
harder.
agree.
It's more difficult. For some, it's impossible. That's capitalism. Going to school. Staying in school long enough to get multiple degrees.
Yeah.
Risk.
Yeah. You're right. I'm not, the reason why I was struggling is, like I said, is not because what you were saying was wrong, but because I know of those other realities. I mean, you know of those other realities as well. We know of those other realities. And so that's also probably the social worker in me that's like, but what about these people? And what about them?
And the capitalist in me, the scary capitalist in me.
It's scary, terrifying.
Because I wasn't like this when I was born. I wasn't even like this when I was raised. Sometimes I talk to my family and they get like I'll share some stuff because this is not nice. What happens to, this is another thing I try and explain to people. If you're a man or a woman and you start out, okay, so 90s middle class, 13% interest rate. So if you start out 90s middle class or around middle class, and then you get to upper class, the places that you go to come out the other side are not nice places. You don't relate to the people that raised you anymore.
Wow.
Because you run with hyenas and wolves and sharks. And think about some of your coworkers. Think about some of the beliefs you had to listen to in class. Think about some of the things you couldn't defend.
Yeah.
Because you have to maintain professionalism and decorum. Think about certain things that, they say right now we talk about, we fight for freedom of speech, which means I also have to defend your right to tell me something I find wildly offensive.
Yeah.
But that's the system.
Yeah.
Those are not nice places to go and come out the other side. Do you see what I'm saying? But my call, when I think of my call to my community we have to go though. So let's listen about why it's harder. Let's listen about why it's more difficult. It does not change the path we must take though. Because they're not going to make it any easier. The bar is not going to get any smaller for us. The bar is the bar. The fact that we're starting from the sub-basement, the fact that we're starting from 2 feet up, it doesn't matter where we're starting from. The bar's the bar. Let's go get it.
I hear you. I do.
But here we are.
I do hear you.
Yeah.
And I do believe, it's evident that what you're saying is true because we live in the society that we live in and it looks like what it looks like. I think my integrity though is struggling.
Wow.
Because it feels as though if I agree completely that I am saying that, I know this is not what you're saying, but what it feels like for me is that if I agree with that completely is to say that I'm okay with perpetuating that bar being where it is.
Wow.
Because if we're saying, listen, I hear you, it's hard, I get it, it's so unfair, but this is the way, then it's going to continue being the way. if we look back in history, the people who made really big social changes are the ones who said, we are not okay with this being the way anymore. And so we are going to rebel. And we are going to not go that way anymore. And they could kill me. They could run me over. They could spray mace in my eyes. But I'm not going that way.
I feel challenged by what you said, personally, because it probably identifies something that is true that I didn't know I was thinking. Okay, community-wise, there's a couple of things that are important to me, community-wise. And it's not important to the people who hold the keys. So I decided to try and get some keys. So I listened to a lot of corporate conversation. I was at a conversation. I was at a business lunch once. In the States. So this is a bit different, but it's in the States, doing business. And in the business meeting, I was the power dynamic, you know. And I had somebody look at me and say, well, Travell, surely you don't believe in critical race theory. Look how you're doing. Now, the conversation is going to be what the conversation is. Keys. You need keys. Because if you don't have keys, they can dismiss what you're saying as complaining. We need to own stuff now.
I hear you.
And owning things and being able to do it. Okay. I think we're both speaking from we're talking around it, but we're both speaking from a similar community, from a similar community outlook, right? The thing that I've been so impressed by, horrified and yet impressed by, is what the Saudis have been able to do. And I'll tell you why. Golf is Americana. That is, you need money to even walk this grass. A post 9/11 North America, for those who recall, they saw a lot of the people in the Middle East same. The Saudis have a colorful history politically. They should never be able to buy Americana, but just raw and utter capitalism. Then you had no choice. For those who are soccer fans, and you remember what it was like when Qatar won the bid for the World Cup, that is the world's biggest sport. That has never in its entire history been played in the winter until the guys with the pocketbook came and said, no, but we want you to play here. They said, yeah, all our stadiums will have AC and we're going to put domes in. And then they just didn't. And we still had to go. Keys. Now, everybody loves talking about going to Dubai. Like these cultural echoes, I see the connective tissue of all these things.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to go to Dubai. Every other thing is happening in Saudi. Fights are happening in Saudi. Sports want to go to Saudi. Saudi's buying a fight league. They're invested in, I think it's 25 of the Fortune 500 companies in massive way because it's for sale.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yes, I don't dissuade the community that's saying, hey, let's get the bar to be where it is. But while we're doing that, and the bar is still where it is, a lot of other communities have a couple crusaders that said, you know, forget it. Let's just go get the bar.
I agree.
Yes, let's do it.
Something that I struggle heavily and for a long time have struggled with before the education, like before the formal education, all that stuff. But something that I've deeply struggled with is that we don't recognize that for what we're calling our community, that there are various different histories, right? And so what I've struggled with is the idea that we expect an entire race to unite to do certain things, but we're comparing the experiences of a race to the experience of a ethnic group, and those are not the same thing.
Yeah. So To expand the point, there's no one set of people that I think are a monolith.
No, I mean, we know race is a social construct.
Everything is tribal, cultural, right? My parents are Jamaican, but if I went to Jamaica, I'd have to learn a lot. I would know a lot, but I'd have to learn a whole lot. I'm Canadian. I don't lie about this. I'm Jamaican, Canadian. I was born here. I'm Canadian.
Can't relate.
Sorry?
Can't relate. No, I'm joking. I'm a Canadian that does not claim Canada, but
the pillars, a pillar is still a pillar. A pillar in a light post is still a pillar in a light post, and it does do something. Success in one realm, I do believe through osmosis creates success in other realms.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't think that there will be a direct impact for all people of Nubian color everywhere. But the rub is worth the journey. There is a rub.
Yeah, and I mind you, I am not at all here saying that we should not acquire keys or that we should.
Sure.
Like, I am not of that perspective at all.
Sure.
I'm actually of the opposite perspective.
Yeah.
And this probably goes back to the process versus the, you know what I mean? Yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think sometimes we don't actually pay attention to how gravely the differences in various Black communities' histories change how we interact with getting the keys.
Of course, yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
I do, yeah.
And I think that's what I often struggle with, is that the history of my Grenadian people is so gravely different than the history of Nigerian people.
Massive.
And you see those differences in our communities.
Massive, yeah.
Right? And so I think that I'm trying to pull everything that I'm thinking into one thing, but I think what I'm saying is that there are some of us who have the keys, and I don't want to separate that from cultural and historical experiences.
That's fair.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I do.
Because when I look at, I go to a predominantly Nigerian church, and there is wealth up in that joint. Child.
Yeah. Nigeria, 200 million people. For those who don't know, 200 million people in Nigeria, a lot of money.
They got lots of money.
I think it's 3 billion people in continental Africa. Don't play.
They got lots of money, and the way that they view the bar is not the way that I view the bar. It's not the way that the people in my Grenadian community view the bar.
This is why your work is so important. You've actually indirectly said something that makes your work so important. You just said that predominantly Nigerian church, the way they view the bar and the way your community views the bar are not the same. In that, I have two questions. Do you think that the bar is at actually different places for both of you? Or it is just the way you see it because of historical experience?
Let me preface this by saying that not every Nigerian person has the experience that we're speaking of right now. Because I don't want, you know how the internet's there. They be like, well, you know that. I'm not trying to, I don't do back and forth in the comments. So I had to preface it by saying that. Do I believe that the bar is in different places? No. I don't believe that the bar is in different places for each person. But it can feel like it is depending on where you're positioned.
And that's why I think your work is so important because it's it's not all perspectives.
No, of course. Yeah.
But there's, which is why I think more people from our community need to spend time in therapy. Because it changes their relationship with the bar.
I agree. That's good.
There's this quote that says, if you think you can or you think you can't, either way you're right. It's powerful. Now, getting to that point could be months, years of therapy.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it's not all perspective because, you know, when I work with clients, when we're speaking about like racism, you know, there's certain types of therapy I'm not going to use because I'm not going to gaslight you about the reality of systems. However, I do believe that when we interact with systems that tell us that the bar is not for us, it absolutely changes how we view ourselves, whether we like it or not, and absolutely changes our relationship with the bar.
It does.
Yeah.
Why do more people from our community not spend time in therapy?
Ooh, how long do you have? Well, I think it's important to recognize that for many reasons, colonization being one of the biggest, the majority of us are Christian. And there has been
is that the reason?
That's one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons.
I feel attacked. This is great.
It's what, no, I'm Christian too. I'm Christian. I am all the way Christian. I love me some Jesus. And at the same time, there's still many things to be said about that, right? So,
yeah, so many. Wow.
There has been, and it's gotten so much better with a lot of like the Christian influencers and the ways in which pastors are now, you know, speaking about mental health. But there has, for a long time, and it continues in many ways to be this incorrect divide between seeking professional help for mental health and putting all of your faith in God that He will just fix it. Right.
Okay.
And, you know, one of the examples that is often drawn is that let me not say no. Majority of us Christian people, if someone has cancer, are not going to say, don't go to the doctor.
Right.
But so many of us would say, just pray.
Right.
You don't need a therapist. And I think the struggle that people have is that because mental health and physical health don't always manifest the same way, they struggle to see the necessity of professional help for mental health. But what they also don't realize is that there's a direct correlation between that mental health is physical health, first of all, and that there's a direct correlation between a lot of the physical ailments that we have and our mental health. Chronic pain, hypertension, all of that stuff is physical health. And much of that stuff is often the result of stress, which is mental health, right? And so I think one of the reasons, hold on, let me give it, under the umbrella of what's the word? Stigmatization. Okay. Is if you go to therapy or if you access mental health supports, it means you don't have faith.
You're still that okay.
Right?
That is the thought that
yes,
you're
under that
this
umbrella.
Is, okay.
Yes, right. So there's that. There's shame. Shame for the fact that, and this goes back to, you know, parenting or just family in general, because we are generally a communal people. There's shame in that if my person is not okay, it means that says something about me. Right?
If my person is not okay.
Yeah. So if my child, for example, if my child is not mentally okay, it says something about my parenting. It says something about how I failed.
So it's easier for them to not engage in.
Exactly. So it's easier for me to say, you don't need therapy. You're fine. It's easier for me to say, I don't need you to be diagnosed, because that diagnosis
says
something about the parent, the family. And I'm saying parent, but family, right? You know, we all know of that family that's like, oh, that family, they got problems. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And that's all shame. It's all shame. I think one of the biggest issues within the Black community around mental health and accessing mental health supports is that it's the same thing. Like it's almost like accessing mental health supports is telling outside people your business. Yep. Right? It's telling, and not just literally telling, like as in a therapy session, but even just reaching for it is telling your family's business. It's saying that there's something happening over there.
Something's wrong here.
Something's going on over there. Our parents tell us, make sure you don't bring police to my house.
I remember that. I was told that.
Right? Yeah. Because the police being outside your door says something about what's happening. So I think that I said a lot of things, but I'm saying all of this to say that I think the underlying struggle with our communities accessing mental health is that there's so much shame attached to it.
Okay. And how do you think that, I mean, I don't know, are there metrics that identify some of the most traumatized communities? Are there metrics that cover that? Or is that not something that anybody would want to categorize?
It's not that it's not something that anybody would want to. I would love to. I think it's something that people wouldn't, because it would tell a lot of truth.
Because, in hearing you talk about this, I can't help but think, of all the truth that it says. I think about people who don't go to couples therapy, for example, because of a fear of what that says about them. But then I think about some of my friends, good looking guys, nice guys. But I know trauma that is just waiting under, and it's like, there's this sense sometimes where I'm like, I'm friends with this guy because he's how he's with me as a guy. Like he's my, you know what I'm saying? I'm friends with him.
I am triggered. No, I'm joking.
I'm friends with him because of how he is with me as a brother, of how he makes me feel like I'm a guy and I can go do stuff. And because of that, he's my guy. I would not trust him with my sister.
And it's so funny that you say that, because I literally went to lunch with a friend yesterday, and we're just talking about, like, we're both single, and we're just like, she was like, it's so crazy because, like, I know so many single women, and, like, I don't understand why they're single. And she said, I know so many great single women, and I just can't understand why they're single. Like, and I said, you know them in the capacity of your friend. You don't know them in the capacity of a partner. And so you're saying they're great and questioning why they're not in a relationship. And this is not to, like, demonize. I'm a single girly, so I'm not demonizing singles or saying, like, there must be something wrong with you.
No, ain't nothing wrong. Yo, stay up. Yo, city boys up.
But what I am saying is that exactly what you're saying is that we don't know how people's traumas manifest when in relationship. And the truth is that it often manifests in friendships too.
I'm not going to shoot us bail for that. On a man's side, I can't shoot us bail. I have never seen a guy be a bad boyfriend, and it was a surprise to me.
Oh, okay. Well,
I can't shoot the men bail on that. Maybe women, I don't know what the interaction of women to women are like. I can't think, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Men know. You got right? We know.
Really?
Like, we know.
And maybe that's the oblivion of us women. We're just like, but our friends are so great.
No, we know, man. And it's like we as guys will talk amongst each other. Like, yo, she's a nice girl. He should not be doing her like that. But it's the code, and it's all these things, and it's like,
wow, I feel like I'm in the man cave getting exclusive.
It's because it's the level of, like, I don't know what it is that doesn't make us want to save our own communities either. I've seen black women eat. I've seen black men eat black women alive, and I didn't say anything. I've seen it, and I have a sister.
I think I have to leave now. I can't sit here across from you anymore. I think that my sisters wouldn't have me.
They wouldn't have. And I have a little sister.
Oh, wow.
And I remember that. And it's like, I used to feel a lot of shame about that. I used to be like but it's like, what do you do?
Yeah, it's true. It's difficult. Like I struggle with, first of all, I give men a lot of grace, and women hate me for that, but they'll be all right. I struggle. I think, okay, what I will say is this. I struggle, and maybe this is because I'm a therapist, with, like, not looking for all the reasons why somebody shows up the way they do, which often causes me to be too gracious, where it's like, but, like, like, I don't know, have we been watching Love is Blind? Like, Clay is my guy, and I'm just like,
so you're one of them. Okay. Oh, that makes sense.
I'm just like,
you're that.
Like, but his experience.
Clay would hurt you as well.
Listen, I am AD times 25. Okay.
Spoilers for the finale. When I saw Clay, first of all, Clay's a very good looking guy. If you
very see good looking.
When I saw Clay shed real tears on TV, I said, if AD don't take him tonight, his DMs are too full. He's never coming back. No, Clay a problem. Clay gonna hurt this girl.
I love Clay. Clay, if you see this, marry me. No, I'm joking.
Clay out there in his forest green suit, shedding tears. She's the love of my life, man. With his fresh cut, it was over.
But you don't believe him?
I believe what though?
I felt it. I don't know.
All right. Matter of fact, I don't even have to do this too hard. You're a therapist.
I know.
Clay is a serial cheater.
Is he? Did he say that?
Clay says that his biggest concern in life is if he can be faithful to just one woman.
Yeah, but we about to get in some.
Are we doing it?
Okay.
Okay, we got time.
People keep saying that Clay has said that his biggest fear is cheating, but
it is. He said, I've never seen a great man be faithful.
Yeah. But the question is he saying that because he's a serial cheater, or is he saying that because of what he saw his father do?
No, he said because of him. Even Clay said, I'm used to living that, rock star life. I know what Clay was doing in college.
Wow. Clay, you fooled me.
Clay is essentially saying, I'm used to riding around and getting it.
Yeah.
And you're a woman who I like and respect, and I don't want to do to you what I know I'm going to do.
I feel
because I'm used to riding around and getting it.
I feel like I'm being chastised right now. No, I really okay.
Because you heard him say that when he's like, I'm used to living that, rock star lifestyle.
But rock star lifestyle, was he in a relationship or was he just flinging Willie? Like, was he flinging Willie?
When I was in college, I used to live in the gray area of that too. And I say, you're not my girlfriend. And I say this to men now. I say it now as a 30-year-old man. Mm-hmm. That doesn't alleviate my responsibility for the intimacy.
No. That's not what I'm saying. No. That's not what I'm saying.
So then it doesn't matter if he was dating them or not.
No, okay.
He created a scenario where he knows each and every single woman was heartbroken after.
That's get why he was what I meant
for AD. He was actually scared.
Ladies, I am not saying that men should cheat and it's okay.
No, never that. Oh my God, no, never that.
No, the reason why I said that is because he specifically said he doesn't want to get into a relationship and then cheat. So I was wondering, like, is he, and yes, like you are, people always say this thing of like, I don't owe you anything. You owe me everything. Don't do that.
Whoa, yeah.
Don't do that.
Don't do
that. That is one of my.
Sexual monogamy is required immediately?
For me?
Mm-hmm. You don't have to answer.
I'm Christian, so.
I serve the Lord.
But what
talking publicly, like, okay, we'll talk publicly. Forget you. You have your female friends. Mm-hmm. How many of your female friends are requiring sexual monogamy?
Most of them.
And
all
enforcing
of them?
it?
All of them.
And enforcing it?
How do you enforce it?
How do you enforce sexual monogamy?
Yeah.
At the moment in which you feel it is not being honored, you leave. So
by the time you do that, it's probably already not been honored. So are you enforcing it or are you just leaving when it doesn't happen?
Okay. All right. You've had a good counterpoint. That was good. We all right. I wasn't ready for that. No, honestly. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you're just leaving. Then maybe it's because I don't meet too many people who are enforcing sexual monogamy outside the confines of a traditional relationship.
Oh, my mind only I only see traditional I'm very like. It's my man. We're gonna get married.
I'm thinking like two people rocking for months, going on dates, but they're dating. I don't see men and women enforcing sexual monogamy in those. Okay. I don't see women enforcing sexual monogamy. I see men being very, you better not be giving my love away. I see all that, but okay. You have But I don't see a huge network of women enforcing sexual monogamy in those instances.
That's fair. What I will say is I'm probably the worst person to talk this about because I don't go on dates. I struggle. I'm a struggler single girly. For many reasons. I don't know. I just struggle. But anyways.
You're a therapist. You're a Tyler Perry character. You're too good for all of us.
No, I'm not. I'm actually not. I'm not. Wow, this is not going to be a whole expose of my personal life. But I think I struggle with dating because in this area,
yes,
I'm in binaries. It's either you're my man or you're not.
I thought it was about the journey.
And so that...
trying to find myself in the blues and the whites and the greens.
So that in between for me feels like, but that's my own attachment issues. I have gone to therapy, okay? My attachment issues. I don't want you to leave me, so I need to know that you're my man.
Wow, is that where that comes from?
Oh, absolutely.
I don't want you to leave me, so I need to know you're my man.
which it doesn't really make sense, but in my heart, it makes sense. In my head, my biggest fear. Wow, I'm really putting myself out there.
It's therapy.
What did I sign up for? This is therapy. Yeah. Thank you for being my therapist. My biggest fear, one of my biggest fears, no, let me rephrase that. My biggest fear relationally, like romantic relation, even in friendships, to be honest, is that I will be abandoned. That's one of my biggest fears.
Abandoned, like just left.
Abandoned, correction. My biggest fear is that I will be disappointed. And for those who are asking, my daddy's in my life, grew up with my dad, like, so it's not even one of those where it's like her dad abandoned her, and therefore, I've just experienced a whole lot of disappointment. A whole lot of disappointment in general, even more disappointment, particularly with men. And so I think that, and the weird thing about me is that as much as I've experienced disappointment, I still desire to trust. And so I go in and I'm just like, please don't disappoint me. Please don't do that. Like, I want to trust you so bad. And so my biggest fear, and the reason why I struggle with dating, is because there is that in between where it's like, you don't owe me anything. And that feeling of you don't owe me anything to me registers as you're doing everything against me.
Wow, okay. You don't owe me anything means you're doing everything against me. Okay.
Because if you don't owe me anything, I can't picture that you would choose to do right by me.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. I just processed that in this moment.
Wow. You have a hard time perceiving that somebody would naturally do right by you.
Men,
without
particularly in a romantic.
It to you.
Yeah.
So if I don't have to do it, you don't think I would do it to be kind? As a
I struggle
man.
with that. Yeah. Whew. This got serious.
Wow. How, I don't even know how unique that is though. Do you, when you talk to your friend, doesn't that feel thematic to you?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's the reason why we have those "so what are we" conversations, right? Because anything outside of understanding what we are means that you literally could be doing anything.
Yeah.
And it feels silly to believe that you could be doing anything and you would choose the right thing.
What does that say about what you think about who you're trying to partner with?
It says a lot. Yeah. It says a lot, and I recognize that. And I think that's a part of the reason why I don't date. Because I don't, like I said, I don't. And it's not to say that it's always been like this. Yeah. Believe me, I have trust. I have had my AD moments over and over and over again. And it's one of those things, like, you know, you mentioned like the risk thing, like when you take a risk and then you realize that, oh, I didn't die, then it gives you the capacity to take more risks. But when you take a risk and everything that you were afraid of is made true, the opposite happens.
We talked at the beginning about perspectives.
Oh boy, yeah.
If you would allow me into your process to offer a perspective commentary.
Okay. Don't put this on the recording.
I'm joking. Being on the other side of the worst thing that you thought could happen is a blessing. Because it demystifies it for you. Which we would hope would help you take a bigger risk.
It doesn't feel like a bigger risk. It feels like the same risk.
Okay. Because you feel like you're retreading familiar ground type thing.
And like, I know all the things. Like, I know all the things to say to myself. Like, I know all of the, like, I know all of the things. And that's not to say, I don't say that in a way to brag or anything, to say I know all things.
I do. She know what she's saying. Right?
I know what I should think.
Okay.
But trauma doesn't work with what you should think.
Whoa, that's a good one. Hold on. Trauma doesn't work with what you should think.
That's the reason why it's so hard to take our own advice.
Yes.
We know a lot of the times when I sit with most of the times when I'm sitting with clients, I'm not telling them anything they don't know. I'm helping them process the things that they know, but they have struggles applying.
Because they know it.
They know it.
It's just, how do I?
Right? And so it's not that I don't know. I know that love is a risk, and it's a risk that I desire to take. And a risk that I struggle to take.
So let me ask you a tough question.
Oh boy.
Do you have cultural limitations when making your love decisions?
Absolutely.
You said absolutely.
Absolutely. And I'm going to ride. And I'm going to stick by him.
Right. Okay. So you have a cultural milieu in which you're keeping yourself. I had a conversation with my aunt the other day, which is why I'm doing this. And what we've just talked about today identifies this group as the riskiest pool.
Don't say that.
Hold on, let's land it. To pull from because of usually what's historical shame, a lack of processing of traumas, a lack of seeing the bar. If I think about the things that a person from certain communities, because it'll apply for you how it applies for you, has to process before they even try. I'm talking as a man now. If I think about the stuff that people from certain communities have to process before they even try to be a man. I say that again. Stuff that they have to process before they try to be a man. Then women who choose to pick men from this community, they're signing up for a different task.
No, I don't. One thing about me, I'm a ride for my black man. No, okay, so I hear you.
If I had to spend 20 years not being ashamed of where I grew up, re-identifying my identity away from what media said I had to be, not finding my identity in being society teaches black men to be Lotharios. You're only successful if you can pull the most gal. You can't tell me too many. There's a lot of cultures that have that, but those cultures that have that, guys got to spend time getting out from that. Okay, so he does all that. He does all these things. Then okay, job whatever. Okay, then you have to give this person. You got to take away their superiority, or else they're unapproachable. So you can't make them feel like a superhero. They got to feel like just one of the guys still. You polish him, you put him together. So he can still he can still chill with the people over here. He can chill with the people over here. He can do all the blah, 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 blah. Okay, now go date him. How old is he?
I hear you. I think if I'm applying that to black men, I also have to apply that to myself because I'm a black woman. I'm a part of that pool as well. Of course, I'm not a man, but I'm a part of that pool as well. And if
But black women don't get vilified for dating outside their race. Black men do.
That is not true. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do
This
that.
is gonna be a part 2 episode. We got a couple rounds in it?
Don't do that. Anyways, okay.
Are you really gonna say that black men don't get vilified?
No, I'm
more?
not saying that they don't.
Black men get vilified more than black women for dating outside their race.
Let me listen. I'm a literature girly. I'm about the semantics.
You're about the semantics.
You said
what did I say?
Black women don't get vilified for dating outside their race.
Not like
black men do. Those are two different statements.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So black women get vilified for dating outside their race?
They do.
Where?
They do. I talk to the girlies.
And like what type of what vilification are they getting?
It's giving, oh, you gave up on our man. We have these conversations. Okay. Does it look the same? Do I agree that black men get vilified more? Absolutely.
I had my own who loves me. I am literally the apple of this woman's eye. And she said to me, I wouldn't want to hear anything about black culture from you if you made that choice.
Woo!
That's my own and she loves me.
Yeah.
She was like, I just wouldn't want to hear anything from
But I think that comes from, and I'm not justifying it, by the way. Date who you want to date.
Golly.
But I think that comes from
wow.
I think that comes from a place of experiencing, because we know that the experience of a black woman and the experience of a black man are different, naturally. Right? We have, there are similarities for sure, but there are grave differences because being black and a woman, there's those two intersections, right? It's women and Black. And I think one of the things that Black women experience a whole lot is this feeling of undesirability unless you look a certain way.
Whoa.
Right?
Okay.
And so when I know for me, like I struggled with it for a bit. I'm not gonna lie. Now I'm good. Like genuinely, I'm like, if you, like it doesn't bother me. I'm not gonna look at a biracial couple and be like, look at him, another one. Like
but it was hitting you a certain way before.
It definitely was.
So if you saw like a man like you saw a man like Clay pull up with like a,
I would not be okay. But I think it comes from a place of like feeling like we are not desired. Like we are, like I say all the time, like as a Black woman, as a darker skinned Black woman, as a Black woman who is not a size 2, I feel invisible here. I feel invisible. And I feel like a lot of times when the reaction that we have as Black women to seeing a Black man choose a non-Black woman is that you don't see me. Like I'm out here and I'm riding for the man them, but y'all don't see us.
It's a heavy criticism, and it lands.
It's not a criticism.
No, I think. Sorry, commentary. My apologies. I'm losing my ability. Because it's that is something my mom talked to me about. I have a little sister. And when I first got to college, I started to have a very rainbow. So when I was in high school, I didn't date nobody. I wasn't allowed to date nobody in high school.
Of course you weren't, because you're not allowed to date and then you're supposed to be married. That's the two. Like there's no in between.
So I got to college and I started to have this. When I say rainbow, I mean like different people from different communities. So to have a bit of a rainbow dating trajectory where I was operating on this. I was on a big sapiosexual kick, like
you were living the life.
I play football now. Hey, Clay, hey. I understand. And I was a rapper. Hey, I get it.
Oh boy.
But I remember my mom and I one night for 3 hours called me into a room. My mom
not the room talks.
Yeah, she lives far away. So you got to figure this is me. I'm back home for like the weekend. Yeah. I still to this day love watching movies with my mom. So watching movies together. Me, her, and my sister. My sister goes to bed. It's like 12, and she like sent me a text. Hey, when your sister goes to bed, just come back. Came back. So 12:30. I don't think I left my mom's room till like 3:30 in the morning.
I know those ones.
Just like. Just an overflowing of consciousness. And it did give me a great sense of responsibility. I have another friend. Yeah. And I surround myself around a lot of men who do feel that responsibility, or who have felt that responsibility. And that concept of not being seen. Like there's so many things I've heard. I had one time a friend of mine tell me, I'm not going to say the person's name because I love this guy and he didn't mean it. Right. But as soon as I say he's going to know who it is, I'm so sorry, bro. One time he looked at me and he's like, so I was seeing somebody and she was Italian. I was like, man, I wanted to ask you something. Yeah, sure.
I'm so nervous.
He goes, I thought, Black guys, like, preferred being with, people outside there, white girls. I said, well, why would you think that? Yeah, that's what I thought. I said, okay, well, where are you from? He said, where he's from. I said, do you prefer being with people from where you're from? He doesn't know where I'm from. I said, why did you think it'd be different? Why did you think it'd be different? The older I've gotten, the more time has gone on, which is why I asked at the very beginning if you're political. There's expectation, anticipation, and it happens all the time. There's this expectation and anticipation of things, right? That people apply color to that isn't color. When you talk about being invisible in that sense, I don't think it's possible for anybody to be totally invisible. But I think what they may be saying is they're not seen by the target audience that they want.
Yes, and not being seen in the way that they desire
to be seen.
Right, because I'm not it's not that I'm invisible, and feelings are not facts. That's another piece.
Sure.
It's not that it's not that like oh my god, my DMs are dry. My DMs aren't dry, but
yo, talk it.
And my DMs, listen, they flowing. But I think sometimes there's this. Oh my god, there's so many layers. We could sit here forever. but there's the addition of, and I said like in the beginning, darker skin, you know, Black woman, thicker Black woman, like there's often a sexualization that comes with that. There's often, and it's just like, damn, like I have often felt like I display much of my parts. Okay. I display my intellect, I display my passion, I display my love for community, my love for my family, and we got the body, yaddy, yaddy. Mm-hmm. But what it feels like is that I'm deduced to just the body. And so it's not even that I don't feel seen in regards to, like, I don't feel like the desirability is not just a physical desirability. Because if that was the case, to be honest, I probably wouldn't be having this conversation. It's more so about, like, I want you to see me, like, beyond. And I feel like that often doesn't happen. I feel as though that doesn't happen. When I've had this conversation with men, they say, it's not that doesn't happen. It's just that there's an intimidation that comes with that. And that's a whole nother conversation that kind of annoys me, to be honest. But yeah.
Do you think when you talk about this area in which you're not being seen, you know, it's that old example of the artwork, right? That could just speak to the inability or the lack of tutelage of your target audience being taught how to appreciate those things. My father once said something that spoke not like he didn't mean it, because I immediately said, do you think you're saying this? But it spoke to how much a lot of Black men are taught to be scared of things that will push them outside of their comfort zone. When he taught, like, I think there was a commentary he was talking about, like, how he was saying that, like, a woman with a lot of intelligence is going to be intimidating, but that's only intimidating if you assume yourself as a man to never meet
the standards of that.
Because what you're acknowledging is you're just telling, all you said is, I find that very impressive, and I don't think I'm impressive. So if she's impressive and I'm not, I don't want her.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Oh, me?
Yeah, my turn. What does what you're saying, or do you believe it has any weight on Black men not approaching Black women or not being in relationship with Black women? Do you think that there is any correlation?
Wow. Obviously, I'm not an expert.
Who's to say?
Obviously,
who decides who's an expert? Maybe you are.
All I know are the guys that I'm around. I have a good benefit of being around a couple of guys. And the reason I say a couple is I got some guys that I grew up with that I would consider, like, I look at most things through a capitalist kind of perspective and paradigm and stuff, like financial freedom. So I got I got guys all over the spectrum there. And in that, I see guys who've made decisions, marriage decisions as well, not just relationship decisions, but marriage decisions across the spectrum. And what seemed universal across them was the sense of reverence from their partner. There's a way that men allow themselves to be challenged. And there's, I'm talking community wise, and I'm not an expert, and I don't, right? But I remember a friend of mine one time said, I said, hey, why do you love your wife? And he goes, like, I know how far the arguments will go. It's never going to get out of control. I know we'll stay in the pot. And I am not restricting her in the framework that makes me comfortable. Right? And I just think that, which is why, again, I go back to thinking why your work is so important. I don't think Black men do enough therapy to have the requisite empathy to understand the uniqueness of co-partnering with a woman from their same diaspora, but I think the women do.
You said it, not me.
Because, so I have trauma.
We all do.
and then somebody else has trauma. So I've been in a relationship where we both have trauma. Okay. I have trauma that's rooted in a lot of things. Some of it's rooted in how I look. Somebody else is gonna have trauma rooted in a lot of things. Someone's gonna be how they look. What was eye-opening for me and weird is I remember, it's a small example.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was connected with a woman who was South American. My lineage is Jamaican and we were farmers. Hers was South American and they were, I think they were farmers as well. But it was something where we were cracking a joke about not having running water. Or like when we go back home, we don't have running water. And I remember feeling the intimacy of connective tissue of like, wow, we both can rough it and feeling like, and I remember feeling positive about that. And then I thought about women that I'd been with that were of the archipelago, from the Caribbean. And we never wanted to talk about it because she thought it was shameful. So we didn't do that connective tissue thing. But I'm not proud of the fact that my family's farmers and I go back and I bathe in a gully and stuff like that. And just that cultural identity difference piece was different because somebody always comes to me and says, how did you identify more with this, paler South American woman on things that you would find here? Like what happened? And then I just go back to how color and caste systems in North America attaches shame to things.
Yeah.
Because when I come and say that there's no running water in Jamaica, when I go back home to country for my family reunion and somebody else comes and says, yeah, I just came back from Colombia and in the mountains and they had no running water. Society takes our answers differently. Yeah. And it takes therapy for me as a man to approach a woman and tell her, hey, don't listen to them. I want to know about that. It's not judgment. Let's do that. Ooh. And that's a core thing. It's because connecting is so many thousands of things. That's a small thing. Yeah.
And it takes therapy for you to do that. And it takes therapy for her to be able to receive that.
Yeah. Yes. Because and I always say this, there's a woman that probably is the biggest fan of me ever. I credit her with so much of who I am. We the longest relationship in my life. We dated off and on for like 6 years.
Oh, wow.
We did not have and I know she loves me. We would have never been together because there wasn't the desire and permission. And I remember one time I said to her, if I'm going to try surgery and you see it as a butcher, you're never going to love this. Yeah. But we both acknowledge we should probably do surgery if we're going to do this because we both got a whole lot in here. Yeah. So I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is. And I even say this is like, I probably still go through those things, right? So I'm single as well. I have black women tell me all the time, I look like I don't like black women.
You look like you don't like black women.
I have black women tell me that all the time. Wow. And when I ask, hey, why do you say that? What are the reasons? It has nothing to do with culture. It has everything to do with what the caste system has done to teach us that certain things aren't for our color.
And that goes back to what I said in regards to when you live in a system that tells you that the bar is not for you. Yeah. Right? Wow.
Because that's the thing. When I talk, even in the beginning, when I'm talking like a pure-blooded capitalist, it's because I need to be that way to compete. Capitalism's competition. If I don't talk that way, my competition is going to eat me alive. I will have no money left tomorrow. So when I talk like the bar's here, I'm going to go for it. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I know that, and whether people want to admit it or not, a lot of black women say, well, nah, he don't like black women because look how this guy's talking. Yeah. Some of even just that. Some of just that capitalist money talk, like, yo, I'm in finance. Yeah. That finance bro talk isn't,
You said something interesting when you spoke about, going through and coming out on the other end. You said you come out the other end and you can no longer relate to, your family. And I think we see it that way, but then there's another part where they also can't relate to you. If you're speaking in this way, it's like, do you remember? Like, do you, hey, remember me? Like, remember when we were stuffing it up? Like, you know what I mean? So that, wow, what you just said was very powerful.
So I'm not sure, but I guess we'll both carry the flag.
Listen, my flag, ain't nobody gonna say that to me because it's black men all day on my stories. It's Kofi Siriboe, it's Clay.
If there is one takeaway, I think we've had a conversation about so many different things. I love this. By the way, if you guys like this, we do have other guests lined up, but please email us, message us to do a part 2. I've enjoyed this conversation so much. I think we've only really hit the tip of an iceberg that I think will be much bigger. Maybe we could even do a forum discussion, get some other people involved in a conversation. But if there's one takeaway that you would want, I mean, we talk about so many things, but whether it be black men, black women, whether it be about therapy, whether it be about politics, the bar, relationships, what's one thing that you would want people to take away from our conversation that we just had?
Wow. This might be a little bit of a longer takeaway, but I think the takeaway that I would like people to take is that in many ways, therapy has always also been made a bar. And I want people who feel as though that bar is not for them to know that not only is it for you, but you need it. You should access it. And you should know that you deserve to take up space in that arena.
Wow. And with that, that's another episode of Unlinear. We thank you guys for sitting down. Thank you again so much for sharing time. We'll catch you guys next time.